Welcome everyone to another episode of News with Ari. I'm your host, Ariana, and today we are focusing on a crucial topic, accessibility. This episode's goal is to expand the concept of diversity, increase the awareness of accessibility, and change society by addressing issues within the topic in order to accommodate people living with different needs. So let's get into it. Sometimes I think accessibility is too broad of a concept. I was talking to one of my teachers about accessibility, and I was talking about how a lot of the times when people say the word accessibility, I think of wheelchair ramps or subtitles. But accessibility can mean so much more than that. To me, when I think of accessibility, I think of lacrosse. Being a woman in a male-dominated sport is definitely a unique experience. Because I play box lacrosse, it's a full contact sport, which means there's specifically designed equipment to ensure safety. Unfortunately, because women's bodies are built differently than men's, the lack of variety in equipment makes the sport simply unsafe. Growing up, I quite literally had to use a hammer to create space where I needed it and overlap straps where I didn't. Now being fortunate enough to be on a girls' team with women who have similar problems, I was talking to a teammate who previously played field lacrosse and found out women don't wear helmets while playing because it was said to be unnecessary in a non-contact sport, despite women having higher statistics in concussion injuries. Recently, on MSNBC, a video on a specially made helmet for women's field lacrosse created a big problem within the community, arguably making a non-contact sport rugged and aggressive like the boys. A parent in the community became distraught when looking online one night to find a helmet for his daughter, only for it not to exist, and decided to create his own brand exclusively for underserved women athletes. When I watched that video, my mind immediately went to one of my old coaches, who unfortunately was a victim to a heavy concussion that led her not being able to play the sport or any physical activity due to a permanent brain injury. Her being one of the idols that kept me in the sport, the secure feeling knowing that women have the opportunity to be more safe could not make me more happy. But accessibility doesn't stop there. Now, we have a special guest joining us, my father, Chris Phillips, who's an expert in infrastructure and accessibility issues in the province. Welcome, Chris. What is the current state of accessibility within Ontario's infrastructure, and what progress has it made in recent years?
Well, a couple of things that I think are real progress in Ontario's infrastructure. I can tell you in my organization at Infrastructure Ontario, we've just last year established a new C-suite position for corporate, environmental, social, and governance strategy. So ESG strategy. We established a new position there, the Chief ESG Officer. I think that's a trend and something that many large organizations are doing to ensure that there's the right focus on things like accessibility. And I know last year also when our CEO was reappointed by the board of Infrastructure Ontario, they pointed to his efforts in leading IO and promoting greater equity, diversity, inclusion at our workplaces and in our projects, and instituting a framework, an ESG framework, to help us ensure that there's a consistent approach taken on our projects with respect to energy efficiency, asset resilience, and accessibility included in that list. So I think organizations are putting a lot more focus on things like accessibility and not just as one-offs, but really establishing the right people, the right policies, the right frameworks in their organizations to ensure that consistently on projects we can be making sure that the right accessibility features and considerations are made.
Okay, and how does your department engage with local communities and residents to ensure their perspectives are considered in infrastructure projects?
Lots of forums where the public can be engaged on transit infrastructure projects. Public open houses. Since COVID, we've been holding virtual open houses, so folks don't even have to make it down to the open house location. They can connect in remotely. Lots of working committees during construction liaison committees. So lots of opportunities to seek feedback. I think probably my favorite engagement with a member of the public with respect to accessibility last year is when we had an individual who lives in close proximity to the Eglinton Crosstown West Extension project, come out and join me on a site walk around our construction site. She uses a mobility device, to get around, and I wanted to get her perspective on how accessible our construction, the public areas around our construction sites are, traffic intersections, the sidewalks, the multi-use paths, the bus stops in or out our site. So taking a site tour with her was really helpful in getting the firsthand perspective of somebody who uses a mobility device and what some of the issues that they can come across when trying to be mobile around a construction site. And we shared those findings and those observations with our construction contractor, and we took those on board and tried to correct many of those things that help promote accessibility, not just on the infrastructure we're building, but on the construction sites while the infrastructure is being built.
Okay, and lastly, what are the upcoming priorities and commitments for your department regarding accessibility and infrastructure?
I would like to do more of what I just mentioned in the previous question in terms of engaging members of the community who are advocates for accessibility or are aware of some of the members of our community who struggle with mobility, and bring them to our sites, show them what we're planning for our project, and give them an opportunity to give us firsthand feedback. We're going to be rolling out more open houses, showcasing what we intend to design and construct for our light rail transit stations on that project as well. So I'm looking forward to getting the public's feedback on accessibility features that they'd like to see present in those stations.
All right, thank you for sharing your input on accessibility with Ontario Infrastructure. Next, we have Rachel, who works with people with disabilities. Hi, Rachel. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and your background in caregiving for people with disabilities?
Hello, Ariana. A little bit about myself. I am a friendly individual. I like to consider myself extroverted. I'm also athletic. I enjoy running, playing soccer and hockey. I enjoy reading and watching Netflix with my family on my downtime. I have been working with people with disabilities for a while. I have been working as a deafblind intervener for 6.5 years now, and I also have experience working with individuals with a variety of disabilities such as autism, Asperger's, Down syndrome, fetal alcohol syndrome. I've had the experience during my placement experience and working for my first 2 years in my career, specifically with autism and Asperger's.
What inspired or motivated you to pursue a career in caring for individuals with disabilities?
That stems back from high school, even younger. I've always felt comfortable communicating with people with disabilities. I've always known that I wanted to help people. Throughout high school, I took a program called Leadership, and that allowed me to assist with integrating individuals with disabilities with regular classmates and doing events, and it really showed how talented they are, how much they could flourish just if they were given a chance. And then I remember wanting to take social service work in school, which is what I ended up doing, and it allowed me to learn about the various areas I could work in, and it allowed me to branch off into the disability sector through my placement experience, which I had worked in a behavioral contained classroom, was grade 1s and 2s with a variety of disabilities such as behaviors, and I also worked in a day program with various types of disabilities with young adults. And to do the career I'm currently in, being a deafblind intervener, I had actually seen a deafblind individual in my day program with an intervener, and I thought that is really up my alley. I've also always been interested in sign language, so that is truly what inspired me just to take that next leap, and here I am now.
Can you share some of the specific tasks and responsibilities you handle regularly?
Some tasks and responsibilities that I handle regularly with my client. I assist him with navigating through the community. That includes providing sighted guide in dim lit and narrow areas. That includes communicating with him through a method called print on palm. So if you think about like a paper and pen, but your pointer finger is the pen and the person's palm is the paper, and you communicate by writing lowercase letters in his hand, and he communicates that way. Plus, it's called tactile sign language. So you put signs inside his hand because he can only see peripherally, he can't see straight. So some of the responsibilities in general would be just helping him in the community, communicating with friends, meeting new people. I help him in areas such as the gym. He works at Tim Hortons. If we go to the movies, helping communicating different settings and conversations and environments in the movie, just helping with descriptions. And I've also placed Braille on any items and objects necessary for him to gain independence in his community.
Can you share a moment or experience that had a profound impact on your understanding of accessibility?
Being in this role as an intervener, I have been able to place Braille on my client's gym. This ensures that he has access to the machinery as independent as possible, and it can also allow others who have vision impairment feel more comfortable coming into the gym. It made me see that there are various areas in the community that could use more Braille. For example, if you think about a grocery store, when we walk into a grocery store, you look up and you see there's aisle numbers and there's a list of the items that are inside that aisle. Well, maybe we could put Braille on the side to indicate what is in that aisle. Even inside a public washroom, you'll notice that on the outside of a public washroom, there is the title washroom, and then you'll see that there is Braille underneath there. But once you actually go inside the washroom, there's no indicator of where the sink is, where the toilet is, XYZ of things. So my understanding of accessibility, it became a matter of our society, we're trying, but we can do better.
Are there changes or improvements you would like to see in the way society approaches accessibility challenges?
Personally, I would like to see society approaching accessibility challenges in a way that can make the actual person with the disability feel included and involved with the change. You know the saying, be the change they wish to see. Making the individual with the disability feel included, it goes a long way. I feel as though there's been some things that are done when it comes to a challenge, but we as a society could definitely be doing more. For example, I have noticed that some street lights have noise cues for individuals to walk and bumps in the road to indicate that there's a dip in the ground and it's time to cross the walkway, which is great, but not every single street light has that. And how are you supposed to know where an area needs this and where an area doesn't? So over time, I would just like these situations to be applied to as many areas as possible.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And last but not least, we have Mr. Alexander, who teaches the Leadership and Recreation course and was a former guidance counselor at our school. In your experience, how has recreation and leisure activities become more accessible recently?
I think there's still some accessibility issues with recreational activities and leisure, but there's been a lot that's been done in the last little while to create more accessibility, from physical accessibility, which is just allowing people to participate in a variety of different sports, but also from the accessibility of money and allowing people to access recreational or sports, even though there may be a high cost. So for an example, something like hockey, there's programs such as First Shift or Jumpstart, which also helps with lots of different activities as well, but getting people out and not having money as a barrier.
Yeah, I went through Jumpstart too. And as a teacher, how do you expect your students to promote accessibility after taking your recreational leadership and outdoor pursuits course?
I think the the idea that I want people to understand is that, we expose students to different activities that are not typically done in schools, and we take them out into the facilities that we find here in our communities. So again, giving them exposure to things that they may not have thought of, and then showing them like where you can find these and have accessibility to them, and if there's other programs, that whether it's a free program or at a low cost. Again, just giving students a lot of different variety, which then allow more access into recreation and leisure.
And lastly, can you share a moment or experience when you were a guidance counselor that had a profound impact on your understanding of accessibility?
From a guidance perspective, I think it's the accessibility really is in that post-secondary piece. I think, I know when I went to school, it was a lot of money. And there were options for, to still get scholarships and bursaries and things of that nature. But the cost that I'm seeing now is, and I understand that there's inflation with time, but it is astronomical, the cost, specifically at the university level. And I think that is going to be, and it will continue to be, a massive problem for students to access higher level learning if we don't start bringing some of that under control. At the same time, there is a lot of money out there to be had. In talking about the accessibility, I was given a stat of, and I can't remember the amount of millions, but it was significant amount of money that was left over in bursaries, in scholarships that were not picked up by students. So there is an accessibility piece that's a problem with the cost of going to post-secondary, but at the same time, there is quite a bit of money out there to be had, but students need to do some of that research, and schools also need to provide very good access and very good delivery system of those scholarships and bursaries so that students can have the opportunity to apply.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Oh, you're welcome.
And that brings us to the end of the episode. I'd like to extend a big thank you to Chris, Rachel, and Mr. Alexander for sharing their stories behind their advocacy with us today. And thank you for listening to News with Ari. This has been our accessibility episode, and we hope to expand into more of what it means to be accessible in the near future. Keep a lookout for new episodes released as a part of our segment, Accessibility with Ari. This is your host, Ariana Phillips, signing out.